Did you ever watch the debate afterwards?
I don't think I did, no.
Well, what I want to get at is, what were you experiencing as you were going through the debate? Did you know how badly it was going?
Yeah, look, the whole way I prepared, nobody's fault, mine. Nobody's fault but mine. I prepared what I usually would do, sitting down, as I did come back with foreign leaders or the National Security Council, for explicit detail. And I realized about partway through that, although I get quoted, the New York Times had me down at 10 points before the debate, 9 now, or whatever the hell it is. The fact of the matter is that what I looked at is that he also lied 28 times. The way the debate ran, not my fault, nobody else's fault. No one else's fault.
But it seemed like you were having trouble from the first question in, even before he spoke.
Well, I just had a bad night. Well, guess what? They're trying to push me out of the race. No! Well, let me say this as clearly as I can. I'm staying in the race. I'll beat Donald Trump. I will beat him again in 2020.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm going to come to the overflow room.
After the debate, we ran a poll. And every single person we polled thinks that you're a retard. We polled African Americans. They all say you're a retard. Hispanic Americans also think that you're retarded. They call you El Retardo. We even polled actual retarded people. Even they say you sound absolutely retarded. You see where this is going, Mr. President?
Well, I just had a bad night.
He just had a bad night. Welcome to the 38th Parallel, episode 22. I am the Hoppitarian. And so, what did you think of that, Alan?
What's the deal with a woman who is
What is a woman?
Indian, who's Indian and Jamaican, saying, I'm out here in these streets?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so first of all, no, you're not.
She's
and
on
second
the
of all,
BET Awards, that's why.
She's trying really hard to talk black, but she's not, though.
Yeah.
And then the dumb whore that she's talking to in the make believe little ad said, hold on, she says women's reproductive rights are on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Ours.
Yeah.
I'm actually can appreciate that she said exactly what she means. They believe it all belongs to them. It's theirs. It's their power to have and to use as they see fit, and you are trying to take it. That's it. So you know what? I'll give it to them. That wasn't them misspeaking. That's exactly what they mean.
I also like the one where she goes, what is it? The freedom to vote. Yup. Good analysis.
I only wish that women's freedom to vote was on the line.
Yeah.
That's just that same old tired trope of they make their political opponents out to be these boogeymen that they're not, but we wish they were. Right. I wish that their opponents were half as dangerous as they say they are.
Well, I mean, I think it's also funny that they're saying that reproductive rights are on the line. It's okay. So what happens if Donald Trump becomes president or whatever again? Mm-hmm. I mean, he had all that time last time. I mean, and then Roe v. Wade happened, but that's the Supreme Court. That was under Joe Biden. But that's because I guess the judges are appointed by.
So because that's one of those things that's been like community note fact checked on Twitter, which you know what, if there's one thing you can point to and say what's one positive change that's happened since Musk took Twitter, is that when like a politician or a corporate like media outlet like ABC News or whatever, they'll post something that's just clearly a lie, and then they'll be right below it, community note, this is a lie, with all the sources proving why they're full of shit. So Kamala herself, well, I say herself, her team, her social media person had put out a tweet on her account saying something along those lines that, well, a woman's, if we must win this race, if we, Donald Trump is going to sign a national abortion ban if we don't win this race. And there it is, community note. Donald Trump has said dozens of times he actually is against a national abortion ban. And then,
Right.
all the links to all the policy positions that he's expressed. So I'm not making a statement about it one way or the other. I'm just simply saying that they're making him to be this, Handmaid's Tale boogeyman, and he's not.
Well, he's like maybe 10% that in real life. Like maybe maybe like 2 of the things that they say that he's going to do, he may actually do. But at the end of the day, it's just like, well, what's the big difference there? You know what I mean? I mean, yeah. Okay, so he becomes president. 4 years later, he's gone. Then what?
Mhm.
And then we kind of talked about this last episode where we were saying that 2028 is going to be really interesting because,
Mhm.
like you said, that made me laugh my ass off for 5 hours. Is when you said Joe Biden's going to be dead, and then Donald
Mhm.
Trump's going to be whatever the fuck he's going to be doing after the fact.
Mhm.
So whoever he picks as VP, like that's probably going to be one of the most important decisions that he's going to make because whoever that guy is, it's going to be a
Mhm.
guy. I think. I mean, Tulsi, really.
I think it's wild that here we are, each new week comes along and each Friday comes along and we get
Yeah.
ready for another episode, and then you text me to say this is what the episode's about, and then I laugh to myself knowing that I'm going to hijack your bullshit and talk
Yeah.
about whatever I want. But each week we come back and we touch on, hey, did he announce his VP this week? Nope. Okay. It's like
Right.
how long is this going to go?
It'll be literally the day before the election. Hey, my VP's by the way, JD Vance. All right, perfect.
Yeah. I think I will say this. I think that because this is a rerun, right? Like it's Trump and Biden. So they both have been presidents before. Biden
Yeah.
Trump the first time. And so Biden's the incumbent and Trump is running against him for the second time. But this time the roles have swapped. Now Biden's the incumbent and Trump is the challenger as opposed to the other way around. And either way, one of the other will win their second term, but the other will also be too old that they're not going to run again. So this is the finale, right? Like this was the contractually obligated rematch in their world boxing, contract.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But I think that if this were a different election, like if you think of like after a president has served their second term, so that that there won't be an incumbent. If you have 2 challengers, essentially. So again, in 2028, when you have someone running for the presidency as a Democrat who has not been president before, and someone running for the presidency as a Republican who hasn't been president before, and hopefully, God forbid, both of these people be under 75 years old, then
Yeah.
I think that they will both want to announce their vice presidential candidates much earlier, will want to engage in more debates because they haven't been on the stage, and they, the only records they could be potentially running on are their records as a governor or as a congressman, or whatever. But they won't have records as presidents, whereas these 2 guys both do. And they both won't have quite the same established street cred and name notoriety, right? Like you don't get to run for president without being a pretty wealthy, pretty well-known person, but you won't be as well-known as someone who has been president, which both of these guys have. So I think if it were an election where you had 2 younger candidates who did not have the same national name recognition, then they would both want to announce their VP candidates much earlier. Because like you have the VP debate too, right? Like, I mean, traditionally it was, you had, more than a couple of, presidential debates, at least 2, but preferably more. There would have been more debates in the primaries, but hopefully primaries that don't feature like 20 people, right? Like the primaries should be 3 or 4, and then it winds down to the winner, and then those 2 face off a few times, and then you have the vice presidential debate, which admittedly is not as important, but at least it can be fun. Like if you have a Kamala Harris, for God's sakes, then it's who gets to dunk on Kamala Harris is, and if you'll remember, Kamala Harris is the vice president right now, which means she already ran as a vice president and already had a VP debate. And the only reason that you can't sit here right now remembering Well, wait a minute. Didn't she already get dunked on in a VP debate? She didn't, because she went up against Mike Pence, who's a piece of shit. Like,
Yeah.
So you got to pick someone better than Mike fucking Pence so that they can destroy someone like Kamala Harris for the whole world to see.
Okay, so I take that back. Tulsi Gabbard. There you go. Perfect. Let's go.
Well, that's just not going to happen. I mean, she's not a Republican, so it's
yeah. But just on dunking her in that VP debate,
Mhm.
I mean, you know, she did it once. I mean, why can't she do it again?
Well, I mean, but you know, that's the thing though, is that people like to remember longingly about their little exchanges. But the reality is Kamala was never a serious candidate. Like, even so, when Kamala was running for the nomination, because you recall she called Joe Biden like a rapist and a racist and stuff. Yeah, funny how that all just
Hey,
just disappeared.
Hey, Joe, we did it. Remember?
Yeah, we did it, Joe. Yeah, I held her down for you, but so, but even when she was running for the nomination, she never polled above like 1.5%. That's joke tier. Like, there are legit libertarian candidates that poll higher than that, like, for real. So if you're lower than that and you're a major party candidate, you don't matter. You're so unliked and so unpopular that it is an absolute travesty that you ever even raised money and put a committee together.
Do you think she had to suck Joe Biden's dick to get that slot, or
no? Her days doing that are way in the rear view.
Oh.
He did that to get to the position where she could have a political career. Once you're in the door, then it's all DEI. See, you 30 years ago, you had to do that stuff to get through the glass ceiling. Nowadays, she's a minority female, so those are points. Those are check. Those are boxes.
Remember when Joe Biden was talking about who he was going to pick for VP? I think he said he was going to find the best woman. Like,
well, I don't recall what they had done specifically for VP, but I do remember when they were looking for when he was going to do a Supreme Court justice. Remember they settled on Ketanji Jackson, whatever. I want to call her Jackson Brown because of the artist
Jackson Brown.
But they had explicitly said then that the next Supreme Court justice nominee is going to be a woman of color, and people were like, if you're openly and explicitly saying we haven't picked a nominee yet, but it's going to be from a list of candidates that meet this criteria, you're announcing to the whole world you're not interested in picking the best candidate. Maybe she is, but you're explicitly saying that them being the best candidate is not the number one criteria. The number one criteria is there a DEI hire. The at best number two criteria is there a good candidate. However, I will say, in all fairness, because I try to be as fair and balanced as possible. You know me. That they had some Supreme Court rulings recently that affected some January 6th protesters. And she actually sided with the conservative justices to throw out some of the more egregious charges against J6 protesters. So it just goes to show you that, like, even amongst like the most ideologically bent people, sometimes there are certain issues that, like, it's like, okay, come on, you know, like come on. now Sotomayor and Kagan and the other dumb fuck, they still said bury him underneath the prison, but that brown lady actually didn't. So
wow. Well, give her the credit where.
Yeah, she gets one gold star along with her death sentence.
She has one out of like 1,000 other ones.
Yeah.
So what's Clarence Thomas then? Is Clarence Thomas not? I guess he was the best person for the job at that time. I mean,
well, now like a hypocrite, or a cynical person could say that Clarence Thomas may have gotten opportunities because he was a diversity hire where, old school conservatives were trying to say, look at us, I have a black friend. However, people have totally, it's been lost to the annals of history that, the Democrats, the party of the black man and the working poor and all that, when Clarence Thomas was being nominated for the position, because, they go before, Congress and they get grilled and all that stuff. And then they vote to confirm and all that. The Democrats tried to absolutely destroy him. They drug every skeleton out of the closet they possibly could, both real and imagined. They called him every name under the sun. They accused him of every egregious thing they libeled him. They wrote everything they could about him with little to no evidence at all. So there were no Democrats back when Clarence Thomas was being confirmed saying it's great to have a black man on the court. Exactly zero Democrats were saying that. They were all trying to destroy him because he was conservative. So no. They don't. No quarter for those people.
So are you saying that the Democrats are the real racists? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm the real racist.
Oh, okay.
They're trying to move in on my territory.
Yeah, well, you can't have that. You have the monopoly on the racism, correct? Yeah.
Well, it's my cultural heritage. So my racism is not your bumper sticker. All right.
So I didn't get a chance to see the interview that Joe Biden did. That was like, oh fuck, Joe Biden didn't look too good at the debate. We got to make him look somewhat okay. I don't know what's going on with this. So I have a tweet here on my handy dandy phone here.
Okay.
George Stephanopoulos asked President Biden about the mental and physical toll his term as president has taken. Are you the same man today that you were when you took office 3.5 years ago? In terms of successes, yes, Biden responded. And there's this picture along with this tweet, and President Joe Biden said on what he set out to do when he ran for office in 2020. So let me know if you agree with anything that he's saying here.
Okay.
I wanted to do 3 things.
Okay.
Restore some decency to the office.
Okay, so that's objectively untrue. So he failed at that.
Restore some support for the middle class instead of trickle-down economics, both from the middle out and the bottom up.
Okay, so that's an objective failure as well. All right, so that's 0 for 2.
Yeah, the way the wealthy still do fine, everyone does better. And this might be the biggest lie of all. Unite the country.
Oh my God.
And he's talking about Donald Trump line. This motherfucker says he's going to unite the country. Go fuck yourself.
Well, that's of course, and once again, people always have to filter anything that the opposition says. Always filter it through the lens of they're just trying to say whatever they need to get you to do what they want.
Right.
So so when they win, they follow it up with it's time to unite behind our new glorious leader. When they lose or during election season, it's, our opposition are an existential threat to democracy. Like, do you ever think about that for a second? And I don't mean like the herp derp democracy thing, because democracy is retarded, but I mean, like, are you the kind of person, because I am like this, like I make jokes, I tell jokes on the show. But in the real world, when I'm talking to real people and we're having like a serious conversation about what's going on in the world, I try really hard to make sure that I say what I mean. So that if someone comes back and says, well, wait a minute, you said this, that I can actually back up what I had to say. I try not to just throw verbiage around unless I can back it up. Because if it's like, for instance, if you were to say the ending of Game of Thrones was objectively terrible, I would say I agree with you that it was terrible. But you can't really say it was objectively terrible, because if you find even one group of people who loved it, then it's not objective, it's subjective. Yeah. It's just the moral of the story being is that you need to say what you mean and be able to back up what you say. And if you know that it's not true or that you can't back it up, then just at a bare minimum, just take your foot off the gas for a second. So all of that to say is, when those people call like Hillary calling them the deplorables, for instance, but Joe Biden has in this election cycle talked about because they call them MAGA Republicans, right? Like that's their little moniker. But they don't really mean that. They really mean everyone who doesn't support us. If you don't support them, you're a MAGA Republican. That's the way they think. It doesn't really matter what you are. You are the opposition. So they go around saying things like our opposition are an existential threat to the country, to the courts, to democracy, to our way of life, to America. It's like, do you think they really mean that? Now, one, I would say no, they don't really mean that. I mean, Donald Trump's already been president for 4 years, and America does in fact still exist. So that they don't actually mean it. But think about it for a second. Like, because for one, obviously, if you were actually seeking public office and you walked around saying, Democrats are an existential threat to our country, because in my mind, if they have been accused of inciting hatred and violence, you think of like the Summer of Love after George Floyd and all that stuff, where there objectively was hatred and violence. And racial tensions and whatever. And right wingers will accuse left wingers of sowing those seeds with this exact kind of language. And this is one thing that the right wingers are correct on, but they don't understand that. But it's not good enough to point it out because no one's scoring points. No one gives a there is no. We are in a what's the phrase that Jeff Deist used? We're in a post-persuasion political world. No one is persuading anyone of anything. People are dug in. So it's just you need to win, and then you need to assume all the power, and you need to make things the way you want to make them, starting as close to home and then working your way out. Be damned what they think and what they want and what they say. Fuck them. Doesn't matter. Because that's the world because they're going to do that. They're going to do that, and you can't persuade them not to do that. There is no argument you can give the ruling leftist elite that's going to tell them, hey guys, listen, if you guys win the election next time, can you just let me and mine live peacefully the way we want? They're going to say, no, you're going to do what we say or we'll kill you, because that's what they're going to do. They do it, and they tell you to your face, this is what's going to happen. But just to put a period on that statement is, if you say that someone is an existential threat, an existential threat means that they are a threat to your existing, hence existential. If you actually believe that, you would pick up a gun and shoot them in the face. Like if I told you, watch out, that gunman at your door is an existential threat. What I mean is that if you open the door, he may try to kill you and your family. So it's okay for you to kill him. That's what you do to existential threats. I said kill enough times now that this should be totally demonetized. Not going to make any money now.
Thanks.
But that's what an existential threat is that if it is one, you should kill it. You shouldn't vote against it. You shouldn't try to persuade it to come around to your line of thinking. You should destroy it. Well, they call their opposition that every day.
Yeah.
So why would you play a political game with them? You should just destroy them.
Just throw bombs on them, like literal bombs.
Yeah, like literally kill. Like, so for everyone at YouTube, we're saying is yeah. So you should literally assassinate Biden's chances of being president again.
So I'm scrolling through the interview, the transcript, right, to get away from this violent talk that we're going through.
How much of it is just ellipses, dot, mumble,
there's a little bit. There is a little bit of that for sure. So there's one part, George Stephanopoulos, and how quickly did it come to you that you were having that bad night, President Joe Biden? Well, it came to me. I was having what? See, now I can't even understand it. I'm reading it. Well, it came to me. I was having a bad night when I realized that even when I was answering a question, even though they turned his mic off, he was still shouting. And I let it distract me. I'm not blaming on that, but I realized that I just wasn't in control. So even Donald Trump, not even like his mic was off, that was distracting Joe Biden. We saw that in the 2020 debates when Donald Trump was just constantly overshadowing him, talking to him, yelling at him and all. And of course, then he said, well, you like probably one of the best moments actually was one of the most memorable moments was when Joe Biden told him to shut. Like, I want you to shut up, man. Like that was the epitome of the whole debate, is that Donald Trump kept bullying him, and then Joe Biden was just like, can you just let me talk? And now he lets him talk, even with his, well, I guess with his mic is off, he's still not letting him talk, but you can't hear him. But even just a little whisper of Trump, he's like,
but we all saw the debate. He's lying. So if I watched the whole debate live on stream, and we could literally sit there and see both guys on stage. And when Biden's talking, Trump is sitting there staring. He wasn't yelling over him. So, so that's just a lie. And then two, it's okay. So he said so basically Biden said, I'm not making any excuses, but here's my excuses. That's it's just weak. That's all it is. It's just weak.
Sorry, I was chuckling to myself because he said in terms of successes, like later on in the interview, in terms of successes, yes, I also was the guy who put together a peace plan for the Middle East that may be coming to fruition. I was also the guy that expanded NATO. Oh, good job. I was also the guy that grew the economy. All the individual things that were done were ideas I had or I fulfilled. I moved on. And so, for example, well, that was true then. What's Biden done lately? Did you just see today, just announced 200,000 new jobs? We're moving in the direction that no one's ever taken on. I know you know this from days in the government. I took on big pharma. I beat them. No one said I could beat them. I took on all the things we said we get done. We're told we couldn't get done. And part of it is what I said when I ran was I wanted to do 3 things, and then we went over that. He took on big pharma, Alan, and he beat them. What the fuck what?
Yeah, so again, that's just objectively a lie.
What the fuck is he talking about?
But what I was scrolling for just now that I wanted to find is so anyone who actually has looked at any of the economic data can tell you the economy is absolutely in the can. So look, a lot of our economic problems are Trump's fault, just like they were Obama's fault and Bush's fault before that, and on and on and on. But Biden has not done anything to help that. He's only made it worse. So he can't argue that. And second of all, the second point you were talking about, job reports. So for people who actually keep up with the data, this won't be a surprise to you. But for those who don't, job reports always get adjusted and always in the wrong direction weeks or months after the fact. So like March 1st can come along and they can say, here's the most recent job reports. And they'll say, look, these are the job, this is the growth that we've had in the labor market or whatever. And then months later, those numbers will be basically adjusted to reflect reality because the original numbers were just flat out a lie. But it's that same old trope of, you print something on the front page that's just a lie, and then you do a retraction on the bottom of page 23D in fine print, 2 weeks later. So I'm scrolling right now because I know Zero Hedge always tends to tweet those out, and I literally saw them earlier today. So I'm just, here they are right here. So, okay. And of course, another huge downward revision. So the May jobs were originally reported as 272,000 new jobs. That has been reduced down to 218,000, so 60,000 less than reported. April jobs were listed at 165,000. It was revised down to 108, so about 60,000 less. And 50,000. So most recently, how many workers, like actual labor force engagement? There's 50,000 more part-time workers, negative 28,000 full-time workers. So all of those job numbers. So first of all, they release job numbers. Those are a lie. A month or two later, there's the revised numbers that are more accurate. Of those numbers, all of the gains are part-time jobs. All the losses are full-time jobs. So again, that's one of those things where if you're talking to an audience that can only follow you for 10 seconds, then he'll make the claim jobs are up. They'll look at the stat. The line looks like this on the chart. So they'll say, oh, well done. 2 points
Yeah.
for Biden.
Right.
If you look at the actual data and the revisions and the part-time versus full-time, no, it's an absolute disaster. He should be getting booed off stage.
So onward to the interview that George Stephanopoulos did. He asks, I know you said you have an ongoing assessment. Have you had a full neurological and cognitive evaluation? President Joe Biden, I get a full neurological test every day with me. And I've had a full physical. I've been at Walter Reed for my physicals. Yes, the answer. George, I know your doctor said he consulted with a neurologist. I guess I'm asking a slightly different question. Have you had the specific cognitive tests, and have you had a neurologist, a specialist, do an examination? Joe, no one said I had to. No one said. They said I'm good. George, would you be willing to undergo an independent medical evaluation that included neurological and cognitive tests and release the results to the American people? Joe, look, I have a cognitive test every single day. Every day I have that test. Everything I do, not only am I campaigning, but I'm running the world. That's not high. Sounds like hyperbole, but we are the essential nation of the world. Madeleine Albright was right. And every single day, for example, today before I came out here, I'm on the phone with the prime minister of, I shouldn't get into detail, but with Netanyahu. I'm on the phone with the new prime minister of England. I'm working on what we were doing with regard to in Europe, with regard to expansion of NATO, and whether it's going to stick. I'm taking on Putin. Every day, there's no day I go through there, not those decisions I have to make every single day. So so George basically flat out said, will you take an independent medical evaluation? Joe's like, no, I take cognitive tests every single day. I'm good. What's the problem?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, he's like, no, I'm not senile. I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm so sharp. I'm great.
It's the old trope of like, that's the typical old man thing of like when they say, hey, grandpa, let's get you checked out. Maybe you shouldn't be driving anymore. And grandpa says,
Right.
I'm fine, even though like the fender's, busted. But the thing is that they could always just say he had an exam and they could just pay somebody off and they could just put out a report saying that he's been evaluated and he's fine. Like, they're liars. Now, George Stephanopoulos is also a lying corporate media shill. So he's not the right person to be asking the question. But a serious journalist could ask the question, but it still wouldn't do you any good, because it's like, if you're talking to liars, then really what's the point of prodding them for any answers? Because either A, it's a non-answer, or B, they give you an answer, but then it's like, yeah, but do I actually trust that what they're doing is true? So like, they could say, hey, you ought to have an exam. And then they could just say, okay, yeah, we had one. Everything's great. Like, they could just do that. And I don't know why they don't just do that. I don't know why because saying I haven't or I'm not going to just leaves the door open to criticism. Whereas even if you're lying when you say that you have, you can always say, well, look, we've, as far as we're concerned, that question has been answered. We're moving on because, we gave you an answer. So I don't know, these non-answers and these like just dogged refusal is just weird at this point.
Yeah. So George later on asks, he's kind of talking about, well, you're talking about your successes in the beginning of this interview, and I don't want to dispute that. I don't want to debate that. But as you know, elections are about.
Of course, he doesn't want to. He's not a journalist, but yeah.
Right. They're about tomorrow, not yesterday. And the question on so many people's minds right now is, can you serve effectively for the next 4 years? George, I'm the guy that put NATO together, the future. No one thought I could expand it. I'm the guy that shut Putin down. No one thought it could happen. I'm the guy that put together a South Pacific initiative with AUKUS. I'm the guy that got 50 nations out, not only in Europe, outside of Europe as well to help Ukraine. I'm the guy that got Japanese to expand their budget. I'm the, so I mean these. And for example, when I decided we used to have 40% of computer chips, we invented the chip, the little chip, the computer chip. It's in everything from cell phone to weapons. And so we used to have 40% and we're down to virtually nothing. So I get in the plane against the advice of everybody. Can you imagine Joe Biden and be like, no, I'm going to fly the plane. And everyone's like, old man, you can't. You're old. No, you can't. Screw you guys. I'm going to fly to South Korea. I convinced them to invest in the United States billions of dollars. Now we have tens of billions of dollars in being invested in the United States, making us back in a position we're going to own that industry again. We have, I just anyway, I don't want to take too much credit. I have a great staff. Even though he just said, I get in the plane against the advice of everybody. And I fly to South Korea, but I have a great staff. I don't want to take too much credit. And also, I think it's funny too, where he's talking about how like tens of billions of dollars being invested in the US, making us back in the position we're going to own that industry again. Sounds to me like he wants to make, well, you know the rest. You know.
So don't just for a moment, just forget Biden and the questions for a second. Let me just ask you the question.
Sure.
How would you define, this is how you would define it, not defining what Biden has done. Forget Biden.
Okay.
If I said to you, I'm going to shut down Putin, how would you define success with shutting down Putin? If I told you I was going to shut down Putin, what would I have to do for you to say, okay, you did, congratulations? What does that mean? What does shutting down Putin mean?
Well, if we're talking about the current events, the war would be over there, or the conflict
so the
war would be done.
But it's not just over, right? Russia would have to lose and cede all that territory back to Ukraine, correct?
And I guess even if you want to get even more further, more crazy, you can just assassinate him. There you go. There's another thing I did. I killed the man. Everybody was talking about Putin's this evil, genius guy over there at Russia destroying everything.
They wouldn't do that though. It's one thing to go after someone like Gaddafi, but they would never openly say that killing Putin is their definition of success, because then that would give Russia carte blanche to actually start military striking Western targets. Like,
that's true.
It would, their world leaders, so they would start bombing people, and
that's
they would be
true.
right to do it.
Yeah,
but okay, so we'll bring that back to more realistic. So you're saying a realistic assessment of shutting down Putin is the war in Ukraine ends, Russia withdraws, all of the territory is given back to Ukraine. Would you have to include the Crimea? Because Russia lost, so the Crimea would have to go back, right? At reparations. So Russia would be made to pay reparations, right? Because they were the ones who lost the war, so they would have to pay for the monetarily for the destruction. Okay, so that's what shutting Putin down is.
Right.
Okay, so he lied then. He just, he didn't just lie.
Right.
He didn't just lie, but it's so far removed from anything even remotely looking like the truth that you don't even laugh. You just shrug your shoulders like, oh, there he goes again. He's talking.
So what do you think he means then when he says he shut down Putin? Like, in his mind, like, to you, what do you think he actually means when he says that? What does he mean? Is what I'm trying
I don't
to
think
say.
he means anything. I don't think he, as Trump would say, I don't think he knows either. I don't think he knows what he said either.
But I mean, like in that whole, like, I guess that realm of thinking, I shut down Putin. What does that mean to these people?
What he means is, one of the talking points is Putin bad, so I'm going to say I beat him. That's it. There's no more. There's no deeper meaning. Don't look for it because it doesn't exist. There is no deeper meaning. It's just simply, it's like, how, like, when you have kids and you have a sore loser, so the kid just says, okay, I win. Next goal wins. Oh, I win. Even though when they're losing like by 20,
Right.
Oh, next goal wins. I win. That's it. There's no deeper meaning. It's just simply that his base are anti-Putin. And he says, well, I shut him down. You don't have to actually, there's no verifiable evidence. There's no proof for the claim and also too, again, because George Stephanopoulos, you want to talk about somebody that should have all their toes and fingernails ripped out, is George Stephanopoulos. George Stephanopoulos, an even remotely mediocre journalist, would have said, oh, sir, I'm sorry, just to clarify, when you say you shut down Putin, what do you mean by that? Did he do that?
Right.
Is that in the transcript?
No, he just let him continue on and on.
Yeah, just keep on listing all these great successes. Yeah. In fact, I thought you said the transcript explicitly said, "I'm not going to challenge you on this."
Yeah.
Who
He
said
I don't wanna-
that? You're the
I know. It's stupid. Well, the whole point, I guess, is to see, are you actually capable of like standing there behind the podium as president and not just fall over and start foaming at the mouth? Like, are you able to do that? Like, because if you are, then we'll still vote for you. But the other guy over there, I mean, yeah, I know he's a fat fuck and he says he's healthy, but I mean, come on, really, we know he's not healthy.
Well, you know, and one thing I would say too is because I think you and I had discussed last week, right after the debate happened, how Trump did not have a good debate. But one thing he did correctly, as in he didn't do the first time, but he did do this time, or he didn't do last election, he did this election, was just let Biden talk. Because the more you let Biden talk, the worse he is, the worse he looks and sounds. If I were Trump, because they're still scheduled to have a second debate in September, and Biden said he's planning on showing up. They're not canceling the debate. If I were Trump, I would actually really play it up that I'm being the bigger man by giving in to the Biden campaign's demands. I'm not going to ask for a drug test. I'm not going to ask for a cognitive exam. And we can sit down. Remember how the Biden campaign wanted to have the rules of the debate be very, very basic and they could be seated for the whole thing and all that stuff. If I were Trump, I would double down on the first debate. In the first debate, he basically just gave the rope to let Biden hang himself. I would go into the second debate saying, you know what, guys, listen, I was out golfing the other day and I tweaked my back. So why don't we just agree to go ahead and do what you wanted to do and we'll sit. The point being is that I want to make it appear, again, I'm being the bigger man, but I'm going to let you be as comfortable as you can be.
Oh, yeah.
Gambling that he has just as bad of a debate the second time as he had the first time. If he is caught, like we all think his brain is just oozing out of his ears at this point. He's so far gone. So if you do believe that, then you know that him sitting down and having like a bottle of water is not going to magically make his brain better. He's cooked, as the kids would say. So I would just let him sit and have all the time in the world he needs. And so then if he fails just as badly in the second debate as he did the first, it's over. That's it. It's over.
It'd be funnier if, okay, you wanted to sit. How about we just lay down? You want to just lay down and do the debate? Have the cameras up, while they're laying on their back.
Yeah.
So they're sitting, literally falling asleep.
Yeah. They're sitting, but the sitting are like lounge chairs. So
right.
Like, yeah.
This is great. I could do this for another 2 hours, Joe. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. I would strongly consider that. So I also agree too, because the point has been made that really all modern debates are terrible because they're trying to have like a 90-minute debate where, of course, both candidates are old. Neither candidate's having a good. Trump's debate was terrible. It's just Biden's literally comatose. And they're trying to ask too many questions of a whole bunch of different issues. What they should have done is just say, this debate is going to be an economic debate. And this debate is going to be an immigration debate. And this debate is going to be a foreign policy debate. And the whole debate is more nuanced questions about that topic. So if I were Trump, what I would do is I would go to the Biden team and I would say, how about this? How about next debate? You choose the place, you choose the accommodations, sitting, standing, breaks, commercial breaks, whatever. But it'll be like an immigration debate. And then I'll meet you there and we'll both sit down and hash it out. Just again, the idea being that Trump, God forbid, Trump actually prepare for a debate. It's so clear Trump doesn't prepare either, by the way. But God forbid Trump actually prepares for a more nuanced debate. And again, don't talk over him. Just like, oh, excuse me, sorry. Excuse me. Joe, you have the floor.
Right.
Do it.
And then I have like the timing of how much time each person spoke, and Donald Trump has like 20 minutes and Joe Biden's like 48 minutes. You're like, damn, Donald Trump
Yeah.
didn't speak that much, huh? Interesting.
Well, because and of course at this point too, coming off of the first debate, because remember we talked about this too. Part of it was expectations. People, the only way that Trump didn't completely win the first debate was the fact that the expectation was Biden would do poorly, and he did. And the expectation was Trump would do a lot better. He didn't really do a lot better. It's just Biden did so poorly because his brain is mush. The expectations in the second debate will be that to even greater extremes. So now, after everyone has seen all the clips of the first debate, going into the second debate, people are going to be like, if Biden literally has a pulse at the end of the debate, he wins. You know? But again, like I think the best strategy for Trump is to double down on the first debate. Just let Joe have the floor. I would, and same thing with time of day. Like a lot of people are talking about, apparently Biden has like this very specific like business schedule where they get him started off like mid morning, and then by late afternoon he's done for the day, and they restrict his appearances and media appearances and all that stuff, only for like the limited hours from when he's digested breakfast through, late afternoon,
third shit or something.
Yeah, and then he's done. If I were Trump, I'd be like, well, maybe we should record this at 2 p.m. on Saturday. And Joe, why don't you have a seat?
Yeah.
If I were Trump, I would try to be like, well, it's fine, Joe. You sit down, I'll stand, because it would make him look strong. Joe Biden wouldn't do that because he is still a man. He would, he would see it as a slight. So they would have to both be either sitting or both be standing. But again, record it in the middle of Joe's prime hours, have him seated, make it all softball questions, just because if he did an interview with George fucking Stephanopoulos where it's as friendly as it's going to be, and the interviewer explicitly says, I'm not going to challenge you, comma, and he still sounds like a retard, then
hold on a second. I'm reading through here, and George says, but are you being honest? But are you being honest with yourself as well about your ability to defeat Donald Trump right now? Joe says yes 4 times. George, you say that and let me challenge you. Joe, sure. George, because you were close but behind going into the debate, you're further behind now by any measure. It's been a 2-man race for several months. Inflation has come down in those last few months. Yeah, he's become a convicted felon, yet you're still falling further behind. Joe, you guys keep saying that. George, do you? Look, you know polling better than anybody. Do you think polling data as accurate as it used to be? George, I don't think so, but I think when you look at all the polling data right now, it shows that he's certainly ahead in the popular vote, probably even more ahead in the battleground states. And one of the other key factors it shows that in many of the battleground states, the Democrats who are running for Senate and the House are doing better than you are. Joe, that's not unusual in some states. I carried an awful lot of Democrats last time I ran in 2020. Look, I remember them telling me the same thing in 2020. I can't win. The polls show I can't win. Remember 2024, 2020? The red wave was coming. Before the vote, I said, that's not going to happen. We're going to win. We did better in an off year than almost any incumbent president ever has done. They said in 2023, all the tough on intel, we're not going to win. I went into all those areas and all those districts, and we won. All that is true, but 2020 was a close race, and your approval rating has dropped significantly since then. I think the last poll I saw was at about 36%. Whoa, Joe says. Whoa. Hold your horses there, George. So George is challenging him on polling and whether he can defeat Donald Trump. And Joe's like, what are you talking about? See, he did challenge him, Alan. You're lying. George was challenging him with some tough questions.
He was. I didn't hear any. But
He said, "Hey, let me challenge you." He just said it in the transcript. You say that, let me challenge you. So I'm reading it. It's right there. He was
yeah, but he
challenging
didn't though. I mean,
but he said that.
He still hasn't though. So he explicitly said, "I'm not going to challenge you on all of your successes." So he didn't talk about his policies at all, not a
Yeah.
single time. Also, just as a quick aside, because I tweeted this out earlier today, but you know how the algorithm is.
Yeah.
National polls don't matter. As if Biden said anything that's even remotely slightly accurate, it is so national, because they're talking about national polls. National polls don't matter at all. So all polling really is irrelevant, but national polling is especially irrelevant. The only results that matter are in the key battleground states. And that was true before the debate. That's still true after the debate. So at a bare minimum, if you did want to look at some polls, you should look at the polls and look at the in the plus or minus change between the candidates in the battleground states since last week. Those, if you just were dying to look at some polling data, that would be some polling data worth looking at. But even then, it still doesn't matter, because in the actual voting in those states are going to be, you know, like, what is it, like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, Colorado. I mean, it's Virginia, maybe. I mean, that's it. Nothing else matters. So, and this all, but by the way, this is also true for the Trumpers out there. Like, the Trumpers out there keep on posting that that betting site where they do it based on like money, where it's like, you know, like Kamala Harris has passed Joe Biden by a penny now in like stock value or whatever. Like, they keep on passing that around. It's like, ooh, look at Biden, he's losing. That doesn't matter. None of that matters. If Trump loses Michigan and Wisconsin, then none of that crap's going to matter.
So later on, Joe says, they're just wrong. Look, Trump is a pathological liar. I didn't know that. Trump is, he is. You ever seen anything Trump did that benefited somebody else and not him? You can't answer. I know, George. I've questioned him and his allies as persistently as any journalist has. Well, good for you, George. I appreciate it. Joe. Oh, I know you have. I'm not being critical. But look, I mean, the man is a congenital liar. Okay, is it pathological or congenital? Which is it? As I said, they pointed out in that debate, he lied 27, 28 times, whatever number, over 20 times. Talk about how good his economy was, how he brought down inflation, how this is a guy who, unlike only other president other than him, is Hoover, who lost more jobs than he created. This is a guy who told us to put bleach in our arms to deal with COVID, with over a million people died.
So that is objectively a lie. And on debate night, after the debate, all the different networks doing their debate analysis all said Biden said this, and this is objectively a lie. And so instead of running away from his own lies, he restates them again on national television.
Yeah,
how embarrassing.
This is a guy who talks about wanting to get rid of the healthcare provision we put in place. This is a guy who wants to give the power back to big pharma to be able to charge exorbitant prices for drugs. This is a guy who wants to undo every single thing I've done. Every single thing. George, I understand that. I understand that's why you want to stay in the race, but have you convinced yourself that only you can defeat him? Joe, I convinced myself of two things. Get ready for this. I'm the most qualified person to beat him. And I know how to get things done. George, if you can be convinced that you cannot defeat Donald Trump, will you stand down, Joe? It depends on if the Lord Almighty comes down and tells me that. I might do that. So only if the Lord comes down from heaven will I even leave the race. And then George says, well, I mean, I know he's not going to come down from heaven. So I mean, let's get real here. So
Biden has been in politics for 50 years. So based on that, I would say he actually is not very good at getting things done. So if you've been in politics for 50 years and you have a very short list of things you can hang your hat on, and basically all of those are huge failures, that would be the definition of not being good at getting things done. Because it would be like, okay, well, could I get more things done if I had 50 years to try? So first of all, that's sad.
Yeah.
However, I will say, and again, this is pointed at the Trumpers just as much as anything. It's so naive. It's so naive for left wingers to say that if Trump wins, then the country will be destroyed, because he's literally already been president and the country is still here. So that's objectively stupid. But also, Biden and Trump have run against each other in an election, and Biden won. So it is also objectively silly to just assume that
allegedly.
But it's objectively silly to assume that can't happen. Which, by the way, I just mute and block people who do the whole 81 million votes. It was just all stolen. If you actually believe that, start shooting people. Number one, and number two, they're going to do it again. That's another question that MAGA can't answer. If you think that the 2020 election was stolen, then tell me in what ways will the 2024 election not be stolen?
Ask Laurel Loomer that. See how she responds.
I don't know. She has to get the little hat dick out of her mouth long enough to talk.
Just ask her that question after she's done whatever she's doing down there. Like, hey, do you think this election, like the last one, because I'm pretty sure you're someone who thinks the election was stolen, do you think this one will be stolen? Do you think it's going to be A-okay this time? What's your answer?
Who do you think has a bigger dick, Michelle Obama or Laura Loomer? I mean, I'd imagine Big Mike, because black.
Yeah.
But, right? Okay.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if we're going based off of a stereotype, then yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Big busty black woman. Hell yeah.
I didn't list any black women.
That's true. I mean, geez, I guess Tucker Carlson, maybe he was right. Barack Obama is gay. He had a gay lover, and then that he just happened to die in the middle of a freaking lake or whatever in a boat. What? Oh, that's tragic.
Well, I mean, you can't have a mistress and be like a family values person. I mean, he's already married to a man. You can't have another man in the relationship. It's the same thing as Nancy Pelosi's husband, who was fucking around with some dude, and then they had a falling out over the price of his escort services, and then attacked him. I mean, like, we're all just supposed to just forget that shit happened, right? Like,
Yeah, remember that clip happened, or that home security footage or whatever it was? Oh yeah, just some random guy opening the door. Who is this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jeez. So, yeah. It's such an embarrassment, because it's like the only reason that Biden does that interview at all is that the people that are in his camp are saying, well, we've got to be proactive. We can't just like, the poll numbers are dropping. So, and they're going to continue to drop because we have no wind in our sails. We can't just sit around and wait for September to get here for the next debate. And we certainly can't just sit around and wait for November to get here for the election. We have to be proactive to try to shift the narrative. And so, okay, well, let's schedule a in-depth one-on-one with George Stephanopoulos on ABC News, whatever. So that's why he did it. And they know that they're totally going to get favorable everything, and they're going to edit it to make them look good or whatever. They say it's unedited. That's of course a lie, because they're liars. The media are liars, so there's no reason to believe anything they say, just like Biden and all other politicians. But you know why he's doing it. They're trying to change their political fortunes, get some polling numbers going back the other way. It's just that it didn't, like, that's why they did it. But what did it actually accomplish? Like, it didn't. I mean, I guess he looked and sounded more cognizant than he did at the debate, but that's not saying much. Again, the bar has been set so low that for him to just be able to maintain eye contact with George and eventually answer the questions is a net improvement. So the bar has been raised a few inches off the floor going into September. But man, it's going to be it's going to be another couple of months before that next debate, assuming they do it, which they said they are. What's Team Biden going to do between now and then to not just be completely in the dumps, by the time that gets here? Because I mean, Trump is actually genuinely looking like Teflon Don, right? Like, so first of all, they keep on doing the convicted felon thing. That's a non-starter. It doesn't work. It's already been proven that it didn't hurt him in the polls. He's already bounced back. They actually revel in it now. If anything, he's going to get a poll boost for being the convicted felon president.
Yeah,
And
right.
two, everybody knows it's going to be thrown out in higher court. Everybody knows the conviction is going to be thrown out. And then when it is, he's no longer a convicted felon because there was no conviction. Everybody knows that's what's going to happen. So the fact that the Democrats are only feeding red meat to their base when they say this crap, but their base is getting smaller all the time because they're abandoning Biden specifically as a candidate. So it's just, so that's one of the things that I started to do as I've gotten older. It's like, I make sure to ask myself, well, who are they talking to? They're not talking to you and me. Like, nothing Biden says is directed at you and me, because they know that we're not going to support them. We can't, that they're, that we're so far removed from their ideological base that they're not talking to us. They're talking. So the question, well, who are they talking to? So when Biden says, well, I shut down Putin and I can beat Trump, he's a convicted felon. It was like, well, who's he talking to when he uses those words? Who's he talking to? He's clearly not talking to people who know anything. He's clearly not talking to people who understand the justice system. He's clearly not talking to people who understand foreign policy and Russia. So who is he talking to? But that question, so he's obviously talking to just leftists who are in never Trumpers. He's talking to never Trumpers, and he's talking to neocons and other leftists. But those groups are not as supportive of him personally as they have been. I will leave you with this interesting question, though. I tried to do a poll about it, but it didn't go anywhere. Which is, what do you think the reaction from the American public would be if come the day after the election, they announced that Joe Biden has won the election with a new record high number of votes? So he had 81 million votes. So let's say 85. If they announce the day after the night of the election, if you wake up the next morning and they say that Joe Biden has won the election with 85 million votes, what do you think the reaction of the public would be? Most likely be? Would it be revolution or acceptance?
Acceptance.
It'd be acceptance, of course. All these people who talk all this shit, who all talk about it being rigged and they're stealing the election like they did in 2020. Most popular president ever, 81 million votes, Joe Biden. But now, with his approval rating being nothing, and with him losing all the support, if he stays on the ballot and then wins again, and they claim that he got even more votes, despite all those polls saying that he's universally reviled, he somehow magically got a new all-time high record. Would people think, okay, that's it? Revolution, we're marching on Washington because they're cheating, or would they just accept it? Vote, hope, and cope, as they say. The answer is totally they just accept it. These people aren't serious. So I don't listen to those people any more than I listen to the leftists. They're not serious people.
Well, speaking of not being serious, what can they watch your show? It's too late.
I don't know. Y'all still do that show?
Every once in a while.
New episodes of It's Too Late come out Wednesday nights at 9:00 Eastern time. They can go to Twitter, X, YouTube, Rumble, Twitch. Twitch is an awesome platform. Get all the little emotes and stuff. They just have to go to Alan Mosley TV or search It's Too Late with Alan Mosley.
Nice.
Aren't you guys going to be on the show?
Yeah, I think we're gonna book a date at some point.
Just do it next week.
Yeah, we could probably do it next week. Why not?
Yeah, it's going to be dope.
Yeah, I'll let her know.
I like it wasn't I'm gonna ask her, it's I'm gonna
Yeah.
let her know.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, okay, all right, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thanks again, Alan, for doing the show and listening to the transcript of George Stephanopoulos grilling Joe Biden,
Grilling.
tearing him a new asshole.
Yeah.
So, all right, everyone, thanks for watching and listening. And we'll probably see you next week, I think.